The night Nora Hale sold herself to save a dying woman, she wore sneakers with holes in them and carried $23 in her purse. The man across the table wore a suit that cost more than her car and spoke like he already owned her answer. "Your grandmother has 8 weeks," he said, sliding a contract across scarred wood. "Marry him for 6 months. She gets the transplant. You get $2 million. Nora's hands shook. Outside, sirens wailed. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed like flies over carrion. She signed her name in blue ink that looked black under the dying bulbs. If you want to see how far desperation can drag a woman into the dark, and whether she can claw her way back out, stay until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Hit that like button. Let's begin. The waiting room smelled like industrial cleaner and old fear. Nora had been sitting in the same plastic chair for 6 hours, watching the second hand on the wall clock stutter between minutes like it couldn't decide whether time was worth tracking anymore. Her scrubs were stained with coffee from a spill 3 shifts ago. She hadn't gone home to change, hadn't slept. The hospital had become a kind of purgatory where she existed between crisis and collapse, and tonight felt like the edge of something final. A nurse she didn't recognize, young, tired, wearing too much concealer under her eyes, appeared in the doorway and called her name wrong. "Nora Hill?" "Hale," Nora corrected, standing. Her knees cracked. 26 years old, and her body already sounded like it was giving up. "Room 404. Dr. Brennan is waiting." Nora's stomach dropped. Dr. Brennan didn't do good news conversations in waiting rooms. He did them in private, where screaming wouldn't disturb other families clinging to threads of hope. The walk down the hallway stretched forever. Nora counted her steps. 32. Each one heavier than the last. Her grandmother had been in the ICU for 11 days. Liver failure. Cirrhosis from decades of drinking she'd quit too late to matter. The transplant list was long. The insurance Nora barely afforded covered almost nothing. Every day her grandmother turned a little more yellow, a little more confused, a little closer to gone. Dr. Brennan sat behind a desk cluttered with files and a coffee mug that said, "World's Okayest Doctor." He was 50-something, balding, with the kind of exhausted eyes that had delivered too much bad news to too many people who couldn't afford to hear it. "Sit," he said. Not unkindly. Nora sat. "Your grandmother's MELD score is 28. She needs a transplant within 8 weeks, maybe less. Without it." He didn't finish, didn't need to. "How much?" Nora's voice came out flat. She'd learned not to waste energy on crying until she was alone. "The surgery, hospital stay, immunosuppressants for the first year, you're looking at $400,000, minimum. Your insurance won't cover it." "No." Nora stared at the wall behind him. There was a painting of a beach. Stupid. Who wanted to look at a beach while discussing death? "There are programs," Dr. Brennan said, shuffling papers like they might contain miracles. "Charity funds, payment plans. I make $32,000 a year as a nursing assistant. I'm already working doubles. I've got $18,000 in student loans and a car that's about to die." Nora's laugh was sharp enough to cut. "What payment plan covers $400,000 for someone like me?" Dr. Brennan's silence was its own answer. Nora stood. "Can I see her?" Of course. Her grandmother looked small in the hospital bed. 71 years old, skin the color of old paper left too long in sunlight. Her name was Ruth, and she'd raised Nora after Nora's parents died in a car wreck when she was 9. Ruth had been a drinker then, but she'd tried. She'd failed a lot, but she'd tried. And when she finally got sober at 63, she'd cried and apologized for every missed school play, every forgotten birthday. Every morning, Nora had made her own breakfast because Ruth was too hungover to stand. Nora forgave her. Some people didn't deserve forgiveness, but Ruth had earned it in the end. Now Ruth was dying because she'd destroyed her liver before she learned to stop, and Nora didn't have $400,000. Didn't have $4,000. Had $1,847 in her checking account and a maxed-out credit card. She held Ruth's hand. It felt like holding paper, thin, fragile, ready to tear. "Hey, Grandma," Nora whispered. Ruth's eyes fluttered. "Nora? I'm here." "You look tired." "I'm okay." "Liar." Ruth's smile was weak. "You were always a terrible liar." Nora squeezed her hand gently. "You need to rest." "I've been resting. I'm tired of resting." Ruth's breathing was labored, wet-sounding. You need to live your life, honey. Stop spending it here. I'm not leaving you. You might have to. Nora's throat closed. She kissed Ruth's forehead and left before the tears came. She made it to the parking garage before her knees gave out. She sat on the concrete, back against a pillar, and sobbed until her ribs ached and her head pounded and the world felt like it was made of edges sharp enough to draw blood. When she finally stood, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but desperation made people do stupid things, so she swiped. Nora Hale? The voice was smooth, professional, male. Not a telemarketer. Something else. Who's asking? Someone who can help your grandmother. Nora's blood went cold. How do you Moretti's Coffee Shop, corner of 5th and Brennan, 9 p.m. tonight. Come alone. I'm not... You have 8 weeks. I have a solution. Your choice. The line went dead. Nora stared at her phone. Every instinct screamed scam, danger, run. But desperation didn't listen to instinct. Desperation was a drowning woman grabbing at anything that looked like it might float. At 8:47 p.m., Nora walked into Moretti's. It was the kind of place that had been dying slowly for decades. Cracked vinyl booths, a coffee pot that smelled burned, a waitress who looked like she'd stopped caring about tips around the time Reagan was president. 3 customers total. 2 looked homeless. 1 looked expensive. The expensive one sat in the back booth. Mid-40s, dark suit, darker eyes. He had the kind of face you forgot 5 minutes after seeing it, which probably meant he'd worked hard to cultivate that quality. He gestured to the seat across from him. Nora sat. I should have brought a friend. You should have, but you didn't. He slid a folder across the table. Your grandmother needs a transplant. You can't afford it. I can. In exchange for what? Your time. Nora laughed. It sounded bitter even to her own ears. If you think I'm not that kind of time. His expression didn't change. 6 months of your life. A marriage contract. Completely above board, legally binding. You marry my employer, live in his home, play the role of devoted wife. After 6 months, you divorce quietly. You receive $2 million. Your grandmother receives her transplant within the week, all expenses covered. Nora's heart hammered against her ribs. Your employer? Dante Varelli. The name meant nothing to her. She said so. The man's smile was thin. That's probably why you were chosen. Chosen for what? Who is he? Someone who needs a wife, someone who can afford to pay for one. This is insane. This is an opportunity. He opened the folder. Inside was a contract, dense with legal language Nora couldn't parse in the dim light. You have 8 weeks. He has enemies who see weakness in his current situation. A wife provides legitimacy, stability, protection. What situation? That's not your concern. It is if I'm marrying him. The man considered her, then he pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. The photo showed a man in a wheelchair. Late 30s, dark hair, sharp features that might have been handsome if they didn't look carved from stone. His eyes were the color of winter oceans, cold, deep, unreadable. He wore a suit that probably cost more than Nora's entire wardrobe. Behind him was a house that looked more like a fortress. Dante Varelli, the man said. 38. Paralyzed from the waist down in a car accident 2 years ago. He runs a network of business interests, import, export, real estate, private security. You mean he's a criminal? I mean he's powerful, wealthy, and in need of a wife for 6 months. After that, you walk away rich enough to give your grandmother the best care money can buy for the rest of her life. You go back to your nursing assistant job or you don't. You do whatever you want, because you'll have $2 million and no strings attached. Nora's hands shook. She hid them under the table. Why me? You're nobody. No criminal record, no connections, no social media presence worth mentioning. You're pretty enough to be believable, plain enough not to attract too much attention. You're desperate enough to consider this and smart enough to survive it. Survive it? Poor choice of words. I meant navigate it. No, you didn't. The man's smile returned. You're smarter than your bank account suggests. Is he dangerous? He's in a wheelchair. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting tonight. He tapped the contract. You have 24 hours to decide. Sign, and your grandmother gets her transplant within 72 hours. Walk away, and we never contact you again. But Nora, he leaned forward, you won't get another offer like this. Not in 8 weeks. Not in 8 years. This is the life raft. You can climb in or you can drown. But don't lie to yourself about having other options. He stood, dropped a business card on the table, and walked out. Nora sat alone in the dying coffee shop, staring at a contract that promised salvation and reeked of damnation. Outside, rain started to fall. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered like they were trying to Morse code a warning. She thought about Ruth, yellow and fading. She thought about $1,847 and 8 weeks. She thought about a man in a wheelchair with winter ocean eyes and the kind of money that could buy anything, including a wife stupid enough to sign her name on the dotted line. At 11:34 p.m., Nora called the number on the business card. I'll do it, she said. Smart girl, the man replied. A car will pick you up tomorrow at noon. Pack light. You won't need much. The line went dead. Nora went home to her apartment, a studio with a leaking faucet and a neighbor who screamed at his girlfriend every Thursday, and packed everything she owned into 2 duffel bags. She didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling and wondered if she'd just sold her soul or saved the only person who'd ever loved her. Maybe both. At noon, a black town car pulled up outside her building. The driver didn't speak. He opened the door and Nora climbed in, feeling like she was attending her own funeral. They drove for an hour into the hills outside the city, where houses became estates and estates became kingdoms. The car turned onto a private road flanked by iron gates that opened automatically. The driveway stretched a quarter mile through manicured grounds that probably required a full-time staff to maintain. The house at the end of the drive looked like something out of a European fantasy. 3 stories, stone and glass, modern and cold. Beautiful the way a mausoleum was beautiful. The car stopped. The driver opened her door. This way, he said. First words he'd spoken. Nora followed him through a front entrance large enough to park a bus in. The inside was all marble and sharp lines, expensive art that looked like someone had sneezed on canvas and called it genius. A woman in a black suit, severe haircut, severe expression, waited in the foyer. Miss Hale, I'm Valeria, Mr. Varelli's head of security. Your bags will be taken to your room. Mr. Varelli will see you in his study. Now? Now. Valeria led her through hallways that seemed designed to disorient. Left, right, up a flight of stairs, down a corridor lined with windows overlooking gardens that looked like they'd been sculpted by someone who hated joy. Finally, they stopped at a set of double doors. Valeria knocked once, then opened. The study was larger than Nora's entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a desk that looked carved from a single piece of black wood, windows that overlooked the city below like a god surveying his kingdom. And in the center of the room, in a wheelchair that probably cost more than a car, sat Dante Varelli. The photo hadn't done him justice. Or maybe it had done him too much. In person, he was sharp edges and controlled violence. Even sitting, even paralyzed, he radiated the kind of power that made the air feel heavier. His suit was dark gray, perfectly tailored. His hands rested on the armrests like he was gripping a throne. When he looked at her, Nora felt dissected. You're late, he said. His voice was low, rough, like gravel under expensive shoes. Nora checked her watch. I'm 2 minutes early. My time is worth more than yours. Early is on time is late. Good thing I'm not here to impress you. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Annoyance? Hard to tell. Valeria, leave us. The door closed. Nora stood in the middle of the study, refusing to look away from him. If he wanted her intimidated, he'd have to work harder. Sit, Dante said. I'm fine standing. It wasn't a request. Nora sat in the chair across from his desk. It was lower than his wheelchair, forcing her to look up. Power play. Obvious. Effective. You understand the terms? Dante asked. 6 months. Fake marriage. I play the doting wife. You pay me $2 million. My grandmother gets her transplant. Correct. You'll live here. You'll attend events as my wife. You'll smile. You'll be charming. You'll make people believe this is real. In private, we maintain separate lives. You have your own room, your own space. I don't expect, he paused, intimacy. Good. Because that wasn't part of the deal. You'll follow instructions. You'll do exactly what I say. when I say it. You'll lie convincingly. You'll make my enemies believe I'm stronger than they think. Your enemies? Everyone has enemies, Miss Hale. Mine just have better funding. What happens if I can't do this? If I can't lie well enough? Dante leaned back. Then you'll have failed. Your grandmother will die, and you'll owe me a considerable amount of money for breach of contract. But I don't think you'll fail. You're here, aren't you? You've already made the hard choice. Everything after this is just acting. What happened to you? Nora asked. His expression went cold. That's not your business. You're asking me to marry you. It's a little bit my business. I'm paying you to marry me. There's a difference. And the answer is a car accident, spinal injury, T10 complete. I've been in this chair for 2 years, and I'll likely be in it for the rest of my life. Does that satisfy your curiosity? Not really. Too bad. He pressed a button on his desk. The door opened. Valeria reappeared. Show Miss Hale to her room. Make sure she understands the house rules. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., we'll begin preparations. Preparations for what? For our wedding. We're getting married in 4 days. Nora's stomach lurched. 4 days? The longer we wait, the more questions people ask. Speed implies authenticity, passion, true love. His smile was sharp enough to cut. We're madly in love, Miss Hale. Try to remember that. Valeria led Nora back through the maze of hallways to a bedroom on the second floor. It was larger than her apartment, decorated in shades of cream and gray that felt more like a hotel than a home. A bathroom with marble counters, a closet the size of a small garage, a bed that looked like it had never been slept in. House rules, Valeria said, her voice clipped. Mr. Varelli's private quarters are on the 3rd floor. You don't go there without permission. The West Wing is off limits. Staff will handle meals, cleaning, laundry. You don't wander the grounds without notifying security. You don't speak to the press. You don't make phone calls without clearing them first. You don't do anything without permission. Got it. Valeria's eyes narrowed. This isn't a joke, Miss Hale. There are people who would kill to know who you are and why you're here. Your safety depends on following the rules. Who would want to kill me? I'm nobody. You're nobody who's about to become Mrs. Dante Varelli. That makes you a target. Nora's throat went dry. What kind of man am I marrying? Valeria's expression didn't change. The kind who keeps his promises, and the kind who destroys people who break theirs. Don't break yours. She left. Nora sat on the edge of the bed and tried to remember how to breathe. 4 days. She was getting married in 4 days to a man in a wheelchair who had enemies and money and eyes like winter oceans. A man who radiated control and violence in equal measure. A man who looked at her like she was a tool to be used and discarded. She thought about Ruth, yellow and dying. She thought about $2 million. She thought about the contract she'd signed in a dying coffee shop under flickering fluorescent lights. And she realized, with a clarity that felt like drowning, that she'd just walked into a cage. The bars were gilded and the lock was made of money, but it was still a cage, and she had 6 months to survive it. That night, Nora dreamed of drowning. She woke at 3 a.m., gasping, and stared at the ceiling of a room that cost more than she'd ever earned in her life. Somewhere in this fortress, a man in a wheelchair sat in the dark, planning something she didn't understand. Somewhere in a hospital, her grandmother faded a little more. And somewhere between those 2 points, Nora Hale had disappeared into a life that wasn't hers, wearing a ring she hadn't earned, about to speak vows she didn't mean. At 8 a.m., Valeria knocked on her door. Time to meet the family, she said. He has family? He has associates. People who need to believe this is real. Get dressed, look expensive. Nora showered, then stared at the closet. Someone had filled it overnight with clothes she'd never bought. Dresses, blouses, slacks, all in her size, all designer labels she'd only seen in magazines. She chose a simple black dress and heels that made her ankles wobble. Valeria led her to a dining room that could seat 20. At the head of the table sat Dante in his wheelchair. Around him sat 6 men in suits that screamed money and violence. They stopped talking when Nora entered. Gentlemen, Dante said, his voice carrying the weight of a command. My fiancée, Nora Hale. 6 pairs of eyes assessed her. Nora felt like a specimen under glass. Sit, Dante said, gesturing to the chair beside him. Nora sat. A staff member she hadn't noticed before poured her coffee. Nora, these are my associates. You'll see them often. You'll smile and be polite and remember nothing they say. One of the men, older, gray-haired, with the kind of face that had seen too much and enjoyed most of it, leaned forward. Where'd you find her, Dante? Does it matter? It matters that she showed up out of nowhere. People will ask questions. Let them ask. We met through mutual friends. We fell in love. It's nobody's business beyond that. She's pretty enough, another man said, his tone making it clear that was the only compliment she'd get. Nora set down her coffee cup hard enough to make it click against the saucer. I'm also sitting right here. Silence. Dante's smile was small, dangerous. My fiancé doesn't suffer fools. I find it charming. I find it risky, the gray-haired man said. Your opinion is noted, Marco. Dante's tone made it clear the discussion was over. The wedding is in 4 days. Small ceremony, immediate family only. Nora will be briefed on names and faces. After that, we have the reception. 200 guests, full press coverage. This needs to look real. It needs to feel real. Anyone who doubts it becomes a problem. Are we clear? 6 nods. Nora felt like she was watching a play she didn't have the script for. The breakfast ended. The men filed out. Dante remained staring at Nora with an intensity that made her want to run. You did well, he said. I didn't do anything. Exactly. You didn't flinch. You didn't apologize for existing. That's more than most people manage in a room with men like that. What kind of men are they? The kind who built empires on other people's failures. The kind who respect strength and devour weakness. He wheeled closer. You're going to meet a lot of people like that over the next 6 months. You'll smile, you'll charm them, and you'll never let them see you afraid. Because the moment they sense fear, they'll test you. And if you break, this whole thing falls apart. And if I don't break, then maybe you'll survive this with more than just money. Like what? Dante's smile was cold. Like your dignity, maybe even your life. He wheeled away, leaving Nora alone in a dining room that felt like a mausoleum. Over the next 3 days, Nora was drilled. Valeria taught her names, faces, histories. Marco Salvetti, Dante's second-in-command, loyal but ruthless. Luca Andretti, financial strategist, barely trusted. Enzo Vitale, head of security operations, dangerous. A dozen more names, each with their own carefully curated role in Dante's empire. She learned how to walk in heels without looking like a newborn deer, how to smile without it reaching her eyes, how to answer questions without actually saying anything. She learned that Dante woke at 5 a.m. and spent 2 hours in physical therapy, pushing his body through routines that left him drenched in sweat and trembling with effort. She learned that he rarely slept more than 4 hours a night, that he read contracts like some people read novels, that he controlled his empire from a wheelchair with more precision than most men managed with full use of their legs. She learned that the West Wing, off limits to her, housed a gym, a medical suite, and rooms she wasn't allowed to ask about. She learned that people feared Dante Varelli not because he was violent, but because he was patient. He didn't strike fast, he struck perfectly. On the morning of the wedding, Nora stood in front of a mirror in a dress that cost more than her car, staring at a stranger. The dress was ivory silk, simple, elegant, designed to make her look like she belonged in this world. Her hair had been styled by someone who clearly thought she was a canvas. Her makeup was flawless. She looked expensive. She looked like someone else. Valeria appeared in the doorway. It's time. The ceremony took place in Dante's private garden. 20 guests, a judge who asked no questions. Vows that felt like lies. Nora spoke with a steady voice, because breaking now wasn't an option. Dante sat in his wheelchair at the altar, wearing a black suit that made him look like a king holding court. When Nora reached him, he took her hand. His grip was firm, warm, real. Do you, Dante Varelli, take Nora Hale to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Nora Hale, take Dante Varelli to be your lawfully wedded husband? Nora looked into winter ocean eyes and saw something she couldn't name. Control. Calculation. And underneath it something raw and burning. I do, she said. You may kiss the bride. Dante pulled her down gently, his hand on the back of her neck, and kissed her. It was brief, controlled, nothing like passion, but it sent electricity through Nora's veins because it was real in a way nothing else about this moment was. When he pulled back, his eyes held hers. "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Varelli," he said. And Nora realized, with a terror that tasted like copper, that she'd just chained herself to a man who owned everything in his world, including now, her. The reception was that night. 200 guests in ballrooms that dripped with wealth. Politicians, businessmen, people whose names Nora recognized from news reports about corruption scandals and unsolved crimes. They shook her hand, kissed her cheek, told her how lucky she was. She smiled until her face hurt. Dante stayed at her side, his wheelchair a throne, his presence a shield. When people asked how they met, he told a story about a charity gala and love at first sight. He lied with the ease of someone who'd been doing it his whole life. Nora played her part, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, pretended to be madly in love with a man she'd known for 4 days. And then, 3 hours into the reception, a woman appeared. She was beautiful in the way that stopped conversations. Tall, dark hair, red dress that looked painted on. She walked straight to Dante, ignoring Nora completely. "Dante," she said. Her voice was honey and poison. Dante's expression didn't change, but Nora felt him tense. "Isabella, you didn't invite me to your wedding. I'm hurt. You weren't on the guest list. I was almost your wife once. That should count for something." Nora's stomach dropped. She looked at Dante. "Who?" "Isabella Corsi," the woman said, turning to Nora with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Dante's ex-fiancée. We were engaged before his accident." She glanced at the wheelchair. "Such a tragedy. I'm sure you're very happy together." Dante's voice was ice. "You need to leave. I just wanted to meet the woman brave enough to marry you, or desperate enough." Isabella's eyes raked over Nora. "Which are you, darling?" Nora's pulse hammered. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to disappear. But she thought about Ruth, about $2 million, about the contract she'd signed. She stepped closer to Dante, put her hand on his shoulder, and looked Isabella dead in the eye. "I'm the woman he chose," Nora said. "That's all that matters." Isabella's smile turned sharp. "We'll see." She walked away, leaving a wake of whispers. Dante's hand covered Nora's. "Well done." "Who is she?" "Someone who doesn't matter anymore." "She seems to think she does." "She's wrong." Dante's grip tightened. "Forget her." But Nora couldn't, because Isabella Corsi had looked at her like she was temporary, like she was a placeholder, like she was already dead. The reception ended at midnight. Guests filtered out, drunk and satisfied. Nora's feet screamed from hours in heels. Her face ached from smiling. Dante wheeled beside her as they returned to the house. In the elevator to the second floor, he spoke. "You survived." "Barely. Barely is enough." He looked at her. "Tomorrow, things get harder." "How can they get harder than this?" "Tomorrow, you meet the press. Tomorrow, the world knows you're mine. And tomorrow, my enemies start looking for ways to use you against me." Nora's exhaustion cracked into something sharper. "You said I'd be safe." "You will be, as long as you follow the rules." The elevator doors opened. "Get some sleep, Mrs. Varelli. You'll need it." He wheeled away, disappearing down the hallway. Nora went to her room, locked the door, and collapsed on the bed still wearing her wedding dress. She'd married a stranger. She'd stepped into a war she didn't understand. And somewhere in the dark, Isabella Corsi was planning something that would shatter everything. Nora closed her eyes and waited for the morning, and whatever hell it would bring. The morning after the wedding, Nora woke to someone pounding on her door. Her head throbbed. The wedding dress lay crumpled on the floor where she'd finally peeled it off at 3 a.m. Sunlight knifed through the curtains like it had a personal vendetta. "Mrs. Varelli," Valeria's voice, sharp as broken glass. "You have 15 minutes." Nora groaned into the pillow. 15 minutes for what? "Press conference, downstairs. Don't be late." Footsteps retreated down the hallway. Nora dragged herself upright, every muscle protesting. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like something dragged behind a truck. Mascara smudged under her eyes, hair a disaster, lips still tasting like champagne and regret. She showered fast, threw on the first dress she found that looked respectable, and made it downstairs in 14 minutes. The main foyer had been transformed into a media circus. Cameras, lights, reporters with microphones and hungry eyes, at least 30 of them, crowded into a space that suddenly felt suffocating. At the center of it all sat Dante in his wheelchair, wearing a charcoal suit and an expression that could have been carved from marble. He saw her and something flickered across his face. Annoyance? Relief? Hard to tell. "There she is," he said, his voice carrying over the noise. "My wife." The cameras swiveled. Flashes erupted like gunfire. Nora's heart kicked into overdrive, but she forced her feet to move, forced a smile onto her face, forced herself to cross the room and stand beside him like this was normal, like she belonged here. Dante's hand found hers. His grip was warm, firm, possessive. He pulled her down slightly so he could kiss her cheek. "Smile," he murmured against her skin. "They can smell fear." Nora smiled wider. A reporter in the front row, blonde, aggressive, microphone thrust forward like a weapon, fired the first question. "Mr. Varelli, this marriage seems sudden. How long have you and Miss Hale been together?" "Mrs. Varelli," Dante corrected, his tone pleasant and dangerous. "And we've been together long enough to know we wanted forever. Love doesn't operate on schedules. Some people are saying this is a business arrangement. Some people will say anything to sell papers." Dante's smile was all teeth. "My wife and I are very much in love." Next question. Another reporter, older, male, skeptical. "Mrs. Varelli, you were a nursing assistant making minimum wage. Now you're married to one of the wealthiest men in the state. How does that feel?" Nora's throat tightened. She felt Dante's hand squeeze hers. A warning or encouragement, she couldn't tell. "It feels," she said, keeping her voice steady, "like I found someone who sees me as more than my bank account. That's rare. I'm grateful." "Are you worried about the dangers that come with being married to Dante Varelli?" "What dangers?" Nora asked, letting confusion color her tone. The reporter's smile was predatory. "Mr. Varelli has been linked to organized crime, money laundering, extortion." "That's enough." Dante's voice cracked like a whip. "This is a press conference about my marriage, not a fishing expedition for conspiracy theories. My businesses are legitimate, my taxes are paid, and my wife is off limits. Are we clear?" Silence. Tense. Ugly. Then the blonde reporter pushed forward again. "Is it true that Isabella Corsi attended your wedding reception uninvited?" Dante's expression didn't change, but Nora felt his hand turn to stone around hers. "Miss Corsi is an old friend," Dante said. "She wished us well, that's all." "Sources say she was your fiancée before the accident." "Sources are wrong." Dante's eyes went cold. "This press conference is over. Thank you all for coming." Valeria appeared like a shadow, ushering reporters toward the door. They went reluctantly, still shouting questions, still snapping photos. Nora stood frozen until the last camera disappeared. Dante released her hand and wheeled away without a word. Nora followed him. "Wait. Not now. You just threw me to the wolves with zero warning." Dante spun his wheelchair around so fast she almost collided with it. "You handled it. That's what you're here for, to handle it." "I'm here because you're paying me, not because I signed up to be interrogated by vultures." "Welcome to my world, Mrs. Varelli. It doesn't get easier from here." "Then maybe you should have warned me." "I did. I told you things would get harder. You thought I was joking." His laugh was bitter. "This is your life now. Cameras, questions, people digging for dirt. You wanted $2 million? This is what it costs." "I wanted to save my grandmother." "And you will, as long as you don't fall apart the first time someone asks a hard question." He leaned forward. "You married me. You took my name. That makes you a target. Get used to it or get out." Nora's hands curled into fists. "I signed a contract. I'm not going anywhere." "Good. Then stop complaining and do your job." He wheeled past her, leaving her standing in an empty foyer that smelled like expensive cologne and suppressed rage. Nora wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to walk out the front door and never look back. Instead, she went to her room, locked the door, and called the hospital. Ruth was stable. The transplant was scheduled for next week. Everything was moving forward exactly as promised. Nora hung up and stared at the ceiling. 6 months. She could survive 6 months of anything if it meant Ruth lived, even if it meant living with a man who looked at her like she was a tool he'd bought and paid for. The next 2 weeks blurred into a nightmare routine. Nora attended charity galas where women in diamond necklaces asked invasive questions with plastic smiles. She sat through business dinners where men discussed mergers and acquisitions like they were planning wars. She learned to laugh at jokes that weren't funny, to deflect questions without answering them, to exist as an ornament on Dante's arm. In public, they were the perfect couple. He was attentive, protective, always touching her. A hand on her back, fingers brushing her arm, his wheelchair positioned close enough that she could feel his presence like a force field. In private, they barely spoke. Dante spent most of his time in the West Wing, the part of the house Nora wasn't allowed to enter. He disappeared for hours, sometimes all night. Valeria said he was working. Nora didn't believe her, but she didn't push. Asking questions about Dante Varelli seemed like a good way to end up regretting it. But 3 weeks into the marriage, Nora's curiosity won. It was 2 a.m. She couldn't sleep. The house was silent except for the hum of climate control and the distant sound of something heavy hitting something else repeatedly. Rhythmic, methodical. Nora got up, pulled on a robe, and followed the sound. It led her to the West Wing, to a door marked Gym in brass letters. Light spilled from underneath. She knew she shouldn't, knew the rules, knew that Dante had made it clear this part of his life was none of her business. She opened the door anyway. The gym was massive. Weight machines, treadmills, a boxing ring in the corner, and in the center a set of parallel bars. Dante was there, shirtless, drenched in sweat, pulling himself along the bars with his arms. His legs hung useless below him, but his upper body was all muscle and controlled violence. He moved with brutal determination, dragging himself forward inch by inch, his face twisted in concentration and pain. Nora watched, frozen. He reached the end of the bars, gripped the support, and tried to pull himself upright. His legs trembled, barely, just a flicker of movement, but they didn't hold. He collapsed back into his wheelchair, breathing hard, and slammed his fist into the armrest. Fuck! Nora should have left, should have backed out quietly before he noticed. But she didn't. "How long have you been doing this?" she asked. Dante's head snapped up. For a moment he looked like he might throw something at her. Then his expression went cold. "What are you doing here?" "I heard a noise. I got curious." Curiosity is a liability in this house. He grabbed a towel, wiping sweat from his face. "Go back to bed." "How long?" Nora repeated. "Every night. For 2 years." He wheeled toward her, his eyes hard. "I do this every night because the doctor said I'd never walk again, and I don't accept that. I push until my body breaks, and then I push harder. That's what you just saw. Satisfied? You're trying to walk again." Brilliant deduction. "Can you?" "Not yet. Maybe never. But I'll die before I stop trying." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell sweat and something metallic, blood maybe, from hands rubbed raw on the bars. "Now get out. This isn't part of the deal. You don't get to see this." "Why not?" "Because this is mine. The one thing in my life that isn't a transaction or a power play or a lie. This is mine and you don't belong here." His words hit like a punch. Nora took a step back. "I didn't mean to intrude." "Yes, you did. You chose to open that door. Own it." "Fine. I'm sorry." "Don't apologize. Just leave." Nora left. But she didn't go back to bed. She sat on the floor outside her room and thought about a man who spent every night fighting a war against his own body, refusing to surrender even when surrender made sense. It didn't make her like him, but it made her understand him a little better. The next morning, Dante didn't mention it. He acted like nothing had happened, like she hadn't seen him at his most vulnerable. They ate breakfast in silence, him scrolling through emails on a tablet, her pushing eggs around her plate. Marco Salvetti arrived halfway through, uninvited and unwelcome based on Dante's expression. "We need to talk," Marco said, dropping a folder on the table. "Then talk." Marco glanced at Nora. "Privately. She's my wife. She stays." "Dante? She stays." Marco's jaw tightened, but he sat. He opened the folder and slid a photograph across the table. It showed Isabella Corsi standing outside a building Nora didn't recognize, talking to a man in a suit. "She's been meeting with Vincent Calabrese," Marco said. Dante's expression went flat. "Dangerous." "When?" "3 times in the last 2 weeks. We don't know what they're discussing, but it's not social." "Who's Vincent Calabrese?" Nora asked. Both men looked at her like she'd interrupted something sacred. "He's a competitor," Dante said finally. Someone who would very much like to see me fail. He's more than a competitor, Marco said. He's been circling for months, looking for weaknesses. If Isabella is feeding him information, she doesn't have information. She hasn't been inside this house in 2 years. She knows about the accident. She knows about your condition. Everyone knows about my condition. I'm in a wheelchair, Marco. It's not exactly classified. She knows you married out of nowhere. She knows Nora's a nobody from nowhere. She's going to dig, and when she finds out this marriage is fake, it's not fake. Dante's voice was ice. Legally, it's as real as any other marriage. Isabella can dig all she wants. She won't find anything. She found out about the wedding before we announced it. Someone's talking. Silence. Tense. Ugly. Dante looked at Nora. Have you spoken to anyone outside this house? No? Not a friend? Not a coworker from your old job? I don't have friends, and I quit my job the day I moved in here. Phone calls? Just the hospital, to check on my grandmother. Marco leaned forward. Who else knows about the transplant? Nora's pulse spiked. What are you implying? I'm asking a question. No one. It's private, between me and the hospital. And Dante's money paid for it. That creates a trail. A trail to what? To the truth. That you married him for money. That this whole thing is a contract. Nora's hands shook. She hid them under the table. You're paranoid. I'm careful. There's a difference. Dante raised a hand. Enough. Isabella can meet with whoever she wants. It doesn't change anything. We stay the course. Nora and I are in love. We're happy. And anyone who says otherwise is lying. And if someone proves otherwise, then I'll handle it, like I handle everything else. Marco stood. You're playing a dangerous game, Dante, with a lot of pieces you don't control. I control everything in my world, Marco, including my wife. Marco glanced at Nora. Something in his eyes looked almost like pity. Then he left. Nora waited until the door closed. What happens if he's right, if Isabella finds proof? She won't. But if she does, all right, then I'll destroy her. The same way I destroy anyone who threatens what's mine. I'm not yours. I'm an employee. Dante's smile was cold. You signed a contract that says you're my wife. For the next 5.5 months, you're exactly as mine as I need you to be. Don't forget that. He wheeled away, leaving Nora alone with the photograph of Isabella and a fear that tasted like metal. That night, Nora couldn't sleep again. She kept thinking about Marco's words. Someone's talking, but she hadn't talked, hadn't told anyone. The only people who knew the truth were her, Dante, and whoever had recruited her, unless someone else had figured it out. She got up, paced her room, tried to convince herself it didn't matter. 5.5 months. She could survive 5.5 months of anything. But the fear stayed, coiled in her gut like a snake. At midnight, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe. Hello? Nora Hale. The voice was female, smooth, familiar. Or should I say, Nora Varelli. Nora's blood went cold. Who is this? Isabella Corsi. We met at your wedding, briefly. How did you get this number? I have friends in useful places. We should talk. I have nothing to say to you. But I have things to say to you about your husband, about your marriage, about the lies you're living. I'm hanging up. Do that, and I'll go to the press. Tell them everything. Nora's hand tightened on the phone. You don't know anything. I know you were a nursing assistant 3 weeks ago. I know your grandmother needed a transplant you couldn't afford. I know Dante paid for it the same week you married him. That's a hell of a coincidence, don't you think? Nora's heart hammered against her ribs. What do you want? To meet. Tomorrow, noon. There's a cafe on Lexington, corner of 5th. Come alone. Don't tell Dante. Don't tell his security. Just you and me, having a conversation. And if I don't? Then I make a few phone calls. Journalists love a good scandal. Billionaire crime lord fakes marriage to desperate nurse. It practically writes itself. You can't prove anything. Isabella's laugh was sharp. I don't need to prove it. I just need to plant the seed. Dante's enemies will do the rest. They'll dig until they find the contract. They'll tear apart your life, your grandmother's medical records, every dollar Dante spent to buy you. And when it all comes out, you'll lose everything. The money, the marriage, your grandmother's transplant, All of it. Nora's throat closed. You're bluffing. Am I? Test me. See what happens. The line went dead. Nora sat on the edge of her bed, shaking. Her phone felt like a bomb in her hand. She should tell Dante, should run to him right now and let him handle it the way he handled everything, with ruthless efficiency and controlled violence. But if she told him, he'd know she'd been compromised. He'd blame her for talking, for creating a trail, for being the weakness Marco warned about. And if he decided she was more liability than asset, Nora didn't want to think about what Dante Varelli did to liabilities. At noon the next day, Nora stood outside a cafe on Lexington, trying to steady her breathing. She'd told Valeria she was going shopping. Valeria had offered to send security. Nora had declined, said she needed space, needed to feel normal for a few hours. Valeria had looked at her like she was an idiot, but hadn't pushed. Inside the cafe, Isabella Corsi sat at a corner table, wearing sunglasses and a smile that could cut steel. She gestured to the empty chair across from her. Nora sat. You came, Isabella said. Smart. What do you want? To help you. Bullshit. Isabella's smile widened. You're smarter than you look. That's good. You'll need it. She slid a manila envelope across the table. Open it. Nora hesitated, then opened the envelope. Inside were photographs. Her and Dante at the wedding. Her at the hospital, visiting Ruth. Her signing papers in a lawyer's office she vaguely remembered from 3 weeks ago. Where did you get these? Like I said, friends in useful places. Isabella leaned forward. Here's what I know. Dante needed a wife to shore up his image. You needed money to save your grandmother. You made a deal. Contract marriage. 6 months? $2 million? Am I close? Nora said nothing. Your silence is confirmation enough. Now here's what you need to know. Dante Varelli is a monster. He built his empire on blood and fear. He's destroyed people for less than what you're doing to him. I'm not doing anything to him. I'm playing my part. For now. But what happens when he doesn't need you anymore? What happens when the 6 months are up and you're a liability who knows too much? I don't know anything. You know he's desperate enough to fake a marriage. You know he's weak enough to need the illusion of strength. That's more than most people know. And Dante doesn't let people walk away with his secrets. Nora's hands curled into fists under the table. What do you want from me? I want you to leave him, before it's too late. I signed a contract. Contracts can be broken. Not this one. If I break it, my grandmother loses her transplant. I lose everything. Isabella's expression softened, just slightly, just enough to look almost human. Then let me help you. I have resources. I can get your grandmother the care she needs without Dante's money. I can make sure you're safe when this all falls apart. Why would you do that? Because I know what it's like to love Dante Varelli. And I know what it's like when he's done with you. She reached across the table, her hand hovering near Nora's. He'll destroy you. Not because he's cruel. Well, not just because he's cruel, but because that's what he does. He uses people and discards them. I was almost his wife. I loved him. And the moment he decided I wasn't useful anymore, he cut me out of his life like I never existed. That's not my problem. It will be. In 5 months, when your contract expires, you'll be exactly where I was, except you'll have more to lose. Isabella pulled her hand back. Think about it. My offer stands. When you're ready to walk away, call me. She stood, dropped a business card on the table, and left. Nora sat alone, staring at the card. It was heavy, expensive, embossed with gold lettering. Isabella Corsi. A phone number. Nothing else. Nora should have torn it up. Should have gone straight to Dante and told him everything. But she didn't. She slipped the card into her purse and went back to the fortress she now called home, carrying a secret that felt like carrying a grenade with the pin already pulled. That night, Dante hosted a dinner. 20 guests, all powerful, all dangerous. Nora played her role, smiled, laughed, touched his shoulder affectionately, made everyone believe she was madly in love. But across the table, Marco watched her with eyes that saw too much. And in her purse, Isabella's business card felt like it was burning a hole through the leather. After dinner, Dante pulled her aside. They stood in the hallway outside the dining room, far enough from the guests that they could speak without being overheard. You did well tonight, he said. Thank you. But you're distracted. What's wrong? Nothing. Don't lie to me, Nora. I can tell when you're lying. I'm tired. that's all. Dante studied her. If something's bothering you, tell me. I can't protect you if I don't know what I'm protecting you from. The words were almost kind. Almost. Nora looked at him, this man in a wheelchair who controlled empires, who fought his own body every night, who looked at her like she was a possession he'd purchased and intended to keep. She thought about telling him, about Isabella, the photographs, the offer. But then she thought about what Marco had said. Someone's talking, and if Dante thought for even a second that she was the one talking. I'm fine, she said, just tired. Dante didn't look convinced, but he nodded. Get some rest. Tomorrow we have another event, charity auction, big money, bigger egos. I need you sharp. I'll be ready. He wheeled away. Nora went to her room, locked the door, and pulled out Isabella's card. She stared at it for a long time. Then she hid it in the bottom of her jewelry box and tried to forget it existed. But forgetting was impossible, because 3 days later, a journalist published an article. Dante Varelli's Mysterious Bride. Who is Nora Hale? The article was a hatchet job. It detailed Nora's background, her job as a nursing assistant, her financial struggles, her grandmother's medical crisis. It stopped just short of calling the marriage fake, but the implication was clear. The article went viral. By noon, Nora's phone was flooded with messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Reporters, bloggers, strangers demanding answers. Dante called an emergency meeting. Nora sat in his study, surrounded by Marco, Valeria, Luca, and half a dozen other men whose names she barely remembered. Everyone looked at her like she'd committed a crime. How did this happen? Marco demanded. I don't know, Nora said. Someone talked. Someone gave them this information. It wasn't me. Then who? I don't know. Dante raised a hand. Silence fell like a guillotine blade. The article is out, he said, his voice calm, controlled. We can't undo it. What we can do is control the narrative. How? Valeria asked. We give them a better story. Dante looked at Nora. Something real. Something they can't tear apart. Like what? Nora asked. Dante wheeled closer. Tonight, the charity auction. I'm going to stand. The room went silent. Dante, Marco said carefully, you can't. I can. I've been working toward this for 2 years. Tonight, I'm going to stand. I'm going to walk to the stage, and I'm going to dance with my wife in front of 200 people and a dozen cameras. If you fall, I won't fall. If you do, it'll destroy everything. They'll see weakness. They'll attack. Let them try. Dante's eyes were winter oceans, cold and merciless. I'm done hiding. I'm done letting people think I'm weak. Tonight, I prove I'm not. And Nora proves she's exactly where she wants to be. He looked at her. Can you do that? Nora's heart pounded. She thought about Isabella's offer, about the escape route sitting in her jewelry box. She thought about Ruth, recovering from surgery, alive because of Dante's money. She thought about 5 more months of this life, these lies, this man who looked at her like she was his last weapon against a world trying to destroy him. Yes, she said. I can do that. Dante's smile was sharp. Good, because after tonight, there's no going back. We're all in, together. And Nora realized, with a clarity that felt like drowning, that he was right. After tonight, everything would change, and there would be no way out except through the fire. The ballroom of the Grand Regency Hotel glittered like a jewelry box that had learned to hate itself. Crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across marble floors. 200 people in designer clothes and practiced smiles moved through the space like sharks circling prey. Waiters carried champagne on silver trays. A string quartet played something classical and forgettable in the corner. The charity auction, supposedly raising money for children's hospitals, but really just an excuse for the wealthy to show off their wealth, was in full swing. Nora stood near the bar wearing a dress that cost more than she used to make in 6 months. Deep emerald silk that clung to her body like a second skin, heels that made her calves scream, hair pulled back so tight it gave her a headache. She looked expensive. She looked like she belonged. She felt like an imposter wearing someone else's life. Dante sat beside her in his wheelchair, wearing a black tuxedo that made him look like he owned the room, which, in a way, he did. Half the people here owed him money or favors or silence. The other half wanted to destroy him. Everyone smiled and shook his hand and pretended they were friends. Marco stood 3 feet away, scanning the crowd with eyes that never stopped moving. Valeria was somewhere in the room, invisible but present. Security disguised as guests watched from the corners. "You look terrified," Dante said quietly. "I'm fine." "You're gripping that champagne glass hard enough to shatter it." Nora forced her fingers to relax. "I'm just nervous." "Don't be. This is theater. All you have to do is follow my lead. And if you fall..." His jaw tightened. "I won't fall. But if you do, then I get back up, same as I do every night in the gym when no one's watching." He looked at her. "You saw that. You know what I'm capable of. I know you're stubborn enough to break yourself trying. Stubborn is just another word for refusing to quit." He wheeled closer. "When I stand tonight, when I walk to that stage, everyone in this room is going to see that I'm not finished, that I'm still dangerous, still in control, and you're going to be standing right next to me, proving that I'm not alone. I'm an actress in your play. You're my wife. That's the only truth that matters tonight." A woman in a red dress approached. Senator Patricia Harmon, according to the briefing Valeria had drilled into Nora earlier. 60 years old, powerful committee assignments, rumored connections to organized crime. She smiled like a crocodile. "Dante, how wonderful to see you." "Senator," Dante's smile matched hers for predatory sharpness. "You remember my wife, Nora?" "Of course. The mysterious bride." Patricia's eyes raked over Nora. "You've caused quite a stir, dear. That article this morning was a hack job by a journalist with an agenda," Dante said smoothly. "Nora and I are very happy. That's all anyone needs to know." "Of course, I'm sure the rumors are completely unfounded." Patricia's smile didn't waver. "Still, people do love to talk, especially when a man of your stature makes such an unexpected choice." Nora felt her face flush. "I wasn't aware my marriage needed to meet anyone's expectations." "Oh, it doesn't, but you must admit the timing is curious. Your grandmother's transplant, the sudden wedding, it does make one wonder." Dante's hand found Nora's. His grip was iron. "Wonder all you want, Senator. The facts speak for themselves. I fell in love. I got married. Anyone who finds that unbelievable needs to examine their own capacity for happiness." Patricia's laugh was sharp as breaking glass. "Well said. Enjoy the evening." She walked away. Nora exhaled slowly. "How many more of those conversations do I have to survive?" "All of them, until people get bored and move on to the next scandal. And if they don't get bored, then we give them something bigger to talk about." At 8 p.m., the auction began. A man in a perfectly tailored suit took the stage and started auctioning off luxury vacations, vintage wines, artwork by dead people whose names Nora didn't recognize. Paddles went up. Prices climbed into 6 figures. People laughed like spending $100,000 on a weekend in Monaco was hilarious instead of obscene. Nora watched it all from her seat beside Dante at a front table. Marco sat to Dante's left. Valeria stood behind them. The rest of the table was filled with business associates whose names Nora had already forgotten. Halfway through the auction, the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. The auctioneer smiled. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special moment. Mr. Dante Virelli has requested a few minutes to address you all." The room went silent. Every eye turned to Dante. He wheeled forward. Nora's heart hammered. This was it. The moment he'd been preparing for. The moment that would either prove his strength or destroy everything. Marco leaned close to Nora. "If this goes wrong, get him off stage fast. Don't let them see him struggle." "How am I supposed to—" "Just do it." Dante reached the stage. There was a ramp. He'd insisted on it, had it built specifically for tonight. He rolled up smoothly, turned to face the crowd, and smiled. "Good evening," he said. His voice carried through the room, amplified by microphones hidden in his lapel. "Thank you all for being here tonight, for supporting a cause that matters, for pretending to enjoy mediocre wine and worse company." Laughter rippled through the crowd, nervous, uncertain. "Most of you know me. Dante Virelli, businessman, philanthropist, man in a wheelchair." He paused. "That last part is what everyone focuses on, isn't it? 2 years ago, I was in a car accident, spinal injury. The doctor said I'd never walk again. They said I should accept my limitations, adapt to my new reality. The room was silent now, listening. I've spent 2 years refusing to accept that. 2 years fighting. 2 years pushing my body past what it should be able to do. And tonight, I'm going to show you what refusing to quit looks like. He gripped the armrests of his wheelchair. Slowly, with visible effort, he pushed himself up. His arms trembled, his legs shook, but he stood. The room erupted in gasps. Nora's breath caught in her throat. Dante stood there, balanced precariously, holding himself upright through sheer force of will. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His jaw was clenched so tight it looked like it might crack. But he was standing. "I'm not healed," he said, his voice strained but steady. "I'm not whole, but I'm here. I'm fighting. And I'm not done yet." He looked at Nora, extended a hand. "Mrs. Varelli, would you join me?" Nora stood. Her legs felt like water. She crossed the distance to the stage, climbed the ramp, and took his hand. His palm was slick with sweat, but his grip was strong. The string quartet, as if on cue, began to play. A waltz. Slow, elegant. "Dance with me," Dante said quietly. "Don't let me fall." Nora moved into position, one hand in his, the other on his shoulder. She could feel him shaking, could feel the effort it took for him to remain standing. But he moved. Small steps, barely more than swaying, but enough to look real. They danced, or performed a convincing imitation of dancing. Nora guided him, supported him, made sure his weight stayed balanced. His legs barely moved. She was doing most of the work, keeping them both upright while making it look natural. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Cameras flashed. People whispered. Dante leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We're not done. We are after this song. I can't hold this much longer." "Then hold on for 30 more seconds." He did, barely. By the time the music ended, he was trembling so badly Nora thought he might collapse. But he stayed upright, smiled at the crowd. Let them applaud. Let them believe he was invincible. Then he sat back in his wheelchair, and the illusion shattered. He slumped forward, gasping. Nora knelt beside him. "Are you—" "Fine. Get me off stage." Valeria appeared like a shadow. Between the two of them, they wheeled him down the ramp and out a side door into a hallway that smelled like industrial carpet and old money. The moment the door closed, Dante's composure cracked. He leaned forward, hands gripping his thighs, and let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "I did it." "You did it," Nora confirmed. "Did it look real?" "It looked real." He laughed again. It sounded manic. "I can't feel my legs. They're on fire and I can't feel them. You need to rest. I need a drink, and a hot shower, and about 12 hours of sleep." He looked up at her. "But we did it. We proved I'm not weak." "You proved you're insane. There's a difference." His smile was sharp. "Same thing in my world." Marco appeared in the hallway. "We need to go. Now." "What's wrong?" "Isabella Corsi just walked into the ballroom with a reporter from the Tribune. They're asking for you." Dante's expression went cold. "Asking or demanding?" "Demanding. She says she has information about your marriage, information the public deserves to hear." Nora's blood went ice. "She's going to tell them." "Tell them what?" Marco asked. "About the contract. About how this isn't real." Dante looked at her. "How would she know about the contract?" "I don't know. I didn't tell her. I swear I didn't." "But you spoke to her." Silence. Dante's voice dropped to something deadly. "When?" 3 days ago. She called me. She wanted to meet. She said she could help." "Help with what?" "She said you'd destroy me when the contract was up. She offered me a way out." "And you didn't think to tell me?" "I thought she was bluffing." "Clearly she wasn't." Dante's hands curled into fists. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing. I swear. She already knew everything. About my grandmother, about the timing, about the money. She had photographs. Photographs of what?" "Me. At the hospital. At the lawyer's office. She had evidence." Marco swore. "Someone's been following her, building a case." "For how long?" Dante demanded. Weeks, maybe longer. Marco looked at Nora. Did she give you anything? A number? A way to contact her? Nora hesitated. Then she pulled Isabella's business card from her purse. Dante stared at it. You kept it. I didn't use it. But you kept it. You had a way to betray me, and you kept it. I wasn't going to betray you. Then why keep the card? Because I was scared. Because Marco said someone was talking, and I thought maybe it was me, and I didn't know what to do. Dante's laugh was bitter. So you kept a lifeline to my enemy, just in case. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. He looked at Marco. Where is she now? Still in the ballroom, with the reporter. They're waiting for you. Then let's not keep them waiting. Dante straightened in his wheelchair. Nora, you're coming with me. We're going to face this together. And you're going to convince that reporter and everyone else in that room that our marriage is real, that you love me, that Isabella Corsi is a jealous ex-fiancée spreading lies. What if I can't? Then we both lose everything. Your grandmother loses her transplant, I lose my empire, and you lose any chance of walking away from this with your dignity intact. He wheeled toward the ballroom. So I suggest you find a way to be very convincing. They walked back into the ballroom. The crowd had grown thicker, more aggressive. People pressed in, phones out, cameras recording. At the center of it all stood Isabella Corsi in a blood-red dress, microphone in hand, looking like she'd won a war. Beside her stood a man in his 40s, thin, sharp-eyed, holding a recorder. The reporter. Isabella saw Dante and smiled. There you are. We were just discussing your lovely marriage. Were you? Dante's voice was ice. Mr. Varelli. The reporter stepped forward. Daniel Cross, Chicago Tribune. I have some questions about the circumstances of your marriage to Miss Hale. Mrs. Varelli, Dante corrected. Right, Mrs. Varelli. Is it true that you paid for her grandmother's transplant the same week you married her? I paid for my wife's grandmother's medical care. Yes, because I love my wife and I have the resources to help her family. And the timing is just coincidence? The timing is love. I met Nora, I fell in love, I married her. Her grandmother needed help. I provided it. There's no scandal in that. Isabella's laugh cut through the room. No scandal? Dante, you married a woman you barely knew to shore up your public image. You needed people to stop seeing you as weak. A wife provides that. My marriage is real. Your marriage is a contract. 6 months. $2 million. I have proof. The room went silent. Every camera turned. Every microphone pointed. Dante didn't flinch. You have lies from a woman scorned. Nothing more. I have bank records, emails, a signed agreement between you and an intermediary outlining the exact terms of your arrangement. Isabella pulled a folder from her bag. Should I read them aloud, or would you prefer to admit the truth? Nora's world tilted. Bank records, emails, a signed agreement. She looked at Dante. His expression was carved from stone, but she could see the edges cracking. Those documents are fake, Dante said. Are they? Isabella opened the folder. Let's see. Miss Nora Hale agrees to marry Dante Varelli for a period of 6 months in exchange for $2 million and full medical coverage for Ruth Hale. That's your grandmother, isn't it, Nora? All eyes turned to Nora. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room was closing in, suffocating her. That's not real, she said. Her voice sounded weak even to her own ears. It's very real, signed 3 weeks ago. Witnessed and notarized. Isabella smiled. You sold yourself to save your grandmother. I don't blame you. Desperation makes us do terrible things, but let's not pretend this is love. It is love, Nora said. Louder now, firmer. Maybe it started as a transaction. Maybe I needed help and he needed someone. But it became real. We became real. In 3 weeks? In every moment since I met him. He's not what you think he is. He's not weak. He's not broken. He's the strongest person I've ever known, and Her throat closed. The words felt impossible, but she said them anyway. I love him. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Voices shouted questions. Isabella's smile turned sharp as a blade. How touching, but love doesn't erase a contract. Love doesn't make fraud legal. She turned to the reporter. Mr. Cross has enough for a story. Tomorrow morning, the world will know the truth, that Dante Varelli's marriage is a sham, that his recovery is theater, that everything about him is carefully constructed lies. Dante wheeled forward. Publish whatever you want. I'll bury you in lawsuits. I have documentation. Truth is a defense against libel. You have stolen property. Those documents are private. Using them is a crime. Exposing fraud is journalism. Destroying someone's life for a headline is opportunism. Dante's voice was deadly calm. But go ahead. Publish. See what happens. Isabella's smile didn't waver. I will. And when your empire crumbles, when your enemies smell blood and come for you, remember this moment. Remember that I warned you, that I gave you a chance to walk away with some dignity. I don't walk, Isabella. I haven't in 2 years, but I'm still standing. He looked at Nora. We're leaving. He wheeled toward the exit. Nora followed, her legs barely holding her upright. Behind them, the crowd roared with questions and accusations and the sound of something breaking that couldn't be repaired. They made it to the car. Marco drove. Valeria sat in front. Dante and Nora in back, separated by silence thick enough to drown in. I'm sorry, Nora said finally. Dante stared out the window. For what? For keeping the card. For meeting with her. For all of it. Are you sorry you lied to me or sorry you got caught? I didn't lie. I didn't tell you everything. Same thing. I was scared. So you made a deal with my enemy. Smart. I didn't make a deal. I just listened. And kept her number, just in case. He turned to look at her. His eyes were winter oceans again, cold and merciless. You want to know the difference between you and Isabella? She never pretended to be anything other than what she was. You stood on a stage tonight and told 200 people you loved me. Was any of that real? Or was it just better acting? Nora's throat closed. I meant it. Did you? Yes. Then prove it. How? By staying, by fighting, by standing next to me when that article comes out and everyone starts circling for blood. He leaned closer. Because tomorrow, when the world knows the truth, they're going to come after you harder than they come after me. They're going to call you a gold digger, a fraud, a desperate woman who sold herself for money. They're going to tear you apart, and I need to know you won't break. I won't break. You better not. Because if you do, if you run, if you take Isabella's offer and disappear, I will find you, and I will make sure you regret ever signing that contract. His words should have terrified her, should have sent her running, but all Nora felt was a strange, desperate kind of relief. Because Dante Varelli threatening her meant he still needed her, meant she still had value, meant she wasn't disposable yet. They arrived at the house. Dante wheeled straight to the West Wing without another word. Valeria disappeared. Marco made phone calls in terse, angry tones. Nora went to her room and collapsed on the bed, still wearing the emerald dress, still wearing the mask she'd worn all night. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but she did. You did well tonight, Isabella said. That speech about love. Very convincing. Almost made me believe it. What do you want? To give you one last chance. The article goes live at 6 a.m. You have 3 hours to leave. I'll have a car waiting. You walk away now. I'll make sure your grandmother gets the care she needs. You stay, and you'll be destroyed along with Dante. I'm not leaving. Even knowing what's coming? Especially knowing what's coming. Isabella was quiet for a moment. You really do love him, don't you? Yes. Then you're a fool. Love won't save you from what he is. Maybe not, but staying will prove I'm not what you think I am. We'll see. The line went dead. Nora sat in the dark, staring at her phone. At 6 a.m., the article went live. Billionaire's sham marriage exposed. Dante Varelli's wife paid $2 million. The headline was everywhere. Every news site, every social media platform, trending on Twitter within minutes. The article included everything. The contract, the bank records, Nora's financial history, Ruth's medical bills, photographs of Nora leaving the lawyer's office 3 weeks ago, signing papers she'd barely read. It was thorough, brutal, undeniable. By 7 a.m., Nora's phone was exploding with calls, reporters, strangers, people from her old life she hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly interested in her story. She turned the phone off. At 8 a.m., Valeria knocked on her door. "Mr. Varelli wants to see you." Nora followed her to Dante's study. He sat behind his desk, staring at a laptop screen that showed the article. His expression was unreadable. "Sit," he said. Nora sat. "They have everything," Dante said. "The contract, the money trail, photos. They've built an airtight case." "I know. My lawyers say we can sue for theft of private documents, maybe win, but the damage is done, the truth is out." "What happens now?" Dante closed the laptop. "Now? Now my enemies smell blood. They'll come for me. They'll test me. They'll push to see if I'm weak. If I can't control my own house, they'll assume I can't control anything else. And me. You're a liability, a crack in the armor. They'll use you to get to me." "So what do I do?" Dante stood. Not from the wheelchair. He used his arms to pull himself upright, gripping the desk for support. He swayed, unsteady, but standing. "You stand next to me," he said. "You face the cameras. You tell them the truth. That yes, the marriage started as a contract, but it became real. That you love me. That I love you. That what we have now is worth more than how it started." "Will they believe it?" "I don't care if they believe it. I care that you sell it." He let go of the desk, took one shaking step toward her, then another. His legs trembled. His balance was precarious, but he walked 3 steps. Then he collapsed back into his wheelchair, gasping. But he'd walked. "I just proved I can stand," he said. "Now you need to prove you won't run. We do this together, or we both fall. Choose." Nora looked at him, this man who'd bought her, used her, turned her life into a battlefield. This man who fought his own body every night, who refused to quit even when quitting made sense. This man she'd somehow, impossibly, fallen in love with. "I choose you," she said. "Then get dressed. We have a press conference in 2 hours. And this time when they ask if you love me, you better make them believe it." Nora stood, started toward the door. "Nora." She stopped. "If you're lying, if this is just another performance, tell me now, because what comes next will be worse than anything you've faced so far." "I'm not lying." "Then prove it, because my enemies are about to come for us with everything they have, and the only way we survive is if we're unbreakable. Together." Nora nodded and left. 2 hours later, she stood next to Dante's wheelchair in front of a room full of reporters who looked like they wanted to tear her apart with their teeth. The questions came fast and vicious. "Did you marry him for money?" "Yes," Nora said. "At first, I needed help. My grandmother was dying. Dante offered a solution. I took it." "So you admit the marriage is fake?" "I admit it started as a contract, but it's not fake anymore. Somewhere between the contract and now, it became real." "How can we believe that?" "Because I'm still here. The article came out. The truth is public. I could leave right now and no one would blame me. But I'm not leaving. I'm staying because I love him." "How convenient." "It's not convenient. It's terrifying. Loving someone like Dante Varelli means living in a world where people like you tear me apart for sport. It means every day is a battle. But I'm still here. That should tell you something." A reporter in the back row stood. "Mr. Varelli, do you love your wife?" Dante looked at Nora. For a moment, his mask slipped. She saw something raw underneath, something real. "Yes," he said. "I do." "Even though she sold herself to you?" "She didn't sell herself. She made a desperate choice to save someone she loved. That's not weakness. That's courage. And yes, I love her, more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone." The room erupted. More questions, more accusations. But Nora stopped hearing them, because Dante had just said he loved her in front of the world. And whether it was true or just another lie for the cameras, it changed everything. The press conference ended. They walked out together. Dante in his wheelchair, Nora beside him, cameras flashing like gunfire. In the car, Marco was waiting. His expression was grim. "Vincent Calabrese just made his move," he said. "He's challenging your control of the port operations. Says you're too weak to hold territory. Dante's jaw tightened. When? Tonight, midnight. The warehouse on Pier 9. He's bringing his whole crew. He wants a meeting. A meeting or an execution? Both, probably. Dante looked at Nora. Go home. Lock yourself in your room. Don't come out until I get back. What are you going to do? What I always do. Win. And if you don't? His smile was sharp as broken glass. Then you'll be a very wealthy widow. The contract pays out either way. He wheeled toward the waiting car. Nora grabbed his arm. Don't go. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap. That's why I have to go. If I don't, they'll know I'm scared. And scared men don't survive in my world. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You said we're in this together. That means I don't hide while you walk into an ambush. This isn't a press conference, Nora. This is violence, real violence, the kind that ends with people bleeding on concrete. Then I guess you better make sure we're not the ones bleeding. Dante stared at her, then impossibly he laughed. You're insane. I learned from the best. He shook his head. Fine. But you stay in the car. You don't get out. You don't interfere. You're a witness, not a participant. Understood? Understood. They drove to Pier 9 in silence. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, 3 stories of rusted metal and broken windows. A dozen cars were already parked outside. Men in dark clothes stood guard, smoking cigarettes, checking weapons. Marco parked 50 feet away. They're expecting you, all of you. How many? Dante asked. 20, maybe more. And we have? 6, including me and Valeria. Good odds. Terrible odds. I've won with worse. Dante checked his phone. Then he pulled a gun from under his seat and tucked it into his jacket. Nora's stomach dropped. You're bringing a gun? I'm bringing insurance. Stay here. Don't get out of the car no matter what you see, no matter what you hear. He wheeled toward the warehouse. Marco and Valeria flanked him. 3 other men Nora didn't recognize followed. Nora watched them disappear through the warehouse doors. Then she waited. 5 minutes. 10. 15. At 20 minutes, she heard the first gunshot. Then another. Then a dozen more, erupting like fireworks. Nora's hands shook. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to get as far from this nightmare as possible. But she stayed, because Dante was in there. And if he died tonight, she needed to know. The gunfire stopped. Silence fell like a curtain. Then the warehouse doors opened. Dante emerged, covered in blood, his wheelchair moving slowly, one hand pressed to his side. Valeria supported him from behind. Marco limped beside them, his face a mask of pain. Nora threw open the car door and ran. I said, stay in the car, Dante gasped. You're bleeding. I'm aware. She helped Valeria get him into the car. His shirt was soaked red. His breathing was shallow. Hospital, Valeria said. No hospital. They'll ask questions. Dante's voice was weak but firm. Home. Dr. Chen. Now. Marco drove. Fast. Reckless. Nora held pressure on Dante's wound, her hands slick with his blood. What happened? She asked. Vincent brought a gun to a negotiation. I brought better aim. Dante's smile was weak. He won't challenge me again. Did you kill him? Does it matter? Yes. Then no. I didn't kill him, but he'll wish I had. They made it home. Dr. Chen, an older man with steady hands and no questions, stitched Dante up in the medical suite. 2 broken ribs, a bullet graze along his side, bruises everywhere. You're lucky, Dr. Chen said. 2 inches to the left and we'd be having a different conversation. Luck had nothing to do with it, Dante replied. When Dr. Chen left, Nora sat beside Dante's bed. He looked smaller without the wheelchair, without the armor of control. Just a man, bleeding and broken. You almost died, she said. But I didn't. You will if you keep doing this. Then I'll die on my feet instead of in a chair. That's the deal I made with myself 2 years ago. It's a stupid deal. It's my deal. He looked at her. You should go. Get some sleep. I'm not leaving. Nora, so... I said I'm not leaving. You got shot tonight because of me. Because of the article. Because I kept Isabella's card and gave her ammunition to use against you. This wasn't your fault. Yes, it was. All of it. The press conference, the article, Vincent sensing weakness. It's all because I couldn't keep my mouth shut, couldn't follow the rules, couldn't... Her voice broke. Dante reached for her hand. His grip was weak but warm. You stood next to me today when you could have run. You told the truth when lying would have been easier. You came to a warehouse full of armed men because you refused to hide. That's not weakness, Nora. That's the opposite. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm drowning. Then drown with me, because I'm not letting go. Nora looked at their joined hands. Blood, his, hers, she couldn't tell anymore, smeared across both. I do love you, she whispered. I know you don't believe me. I know it sounds insane, but it's true. Dante's eyes closed. I know. You know? I've known since the wedding, since you looked at Isabella and told her I chose you. No one's ever chosen me before. Not really. They choose my money, my power, what I can do for them. But you chose me, even when it would have been smarter to walk away. So what do we do now? Dante's smile was tired. Now we survive. Together. Because that's all we've got left. Nora stayed beside him until he fell asleep. Then she went to her room, stripped off her blood-stained clothes, and stood in the shower until the water ran cold. When she finally looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a nursing assistant with nothing. Now she was a wife, a target, a woman who'd stood in front of cameras and declared love for a man who'd bought her. And somewhere in the last 72 hours, it had stopped being a lie. She'd fallen in love with Dante Varelli. A man in a wheelchair who built empires on fear. A man who refused to quit even when quitting made sense. A man who'd almost died tonight and would probably try again tomorrow. And she was going to stay. Because walking away now would mean everything. The pain, the fear, the blood had been for nothing. And Nora Hale didn't survive this long by giving up when things got hard. She dried off, climbed into bed, and waited for morning. Waited for whatever hell came next. Because she knew, with a certainty that felt like drowning, that the worst was still ahead. And when it came, she'd be standing right next to him, even if it killed her. Dante was gone when Nora woke. The medical suite was empty, except for blood-stained gauze in the trash and the smell of antiseptic hanging in the air like a ghost. She checked her phone. 9 a.m. She'd slept 4 hours. It felt like 4 minutes. Downstairs, the house was chaos. Men in suits filled the main foyer, voices overlapping in sharp bursts of Italian and English. Marco stood at the center, barking orders into 2 phones at once. Valeria coordinated from a laptop, her fingers flying across keys. Someone had set up a command center in the dining room, maps spread across the table, photographs pinned to boards, weapons laid out like surgical instruments. Nora descended the stairs. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned. Where's Dante? She asked. Marco lowered one phone. His study. Don't... Nora was already moving. She found him behind his desk, staring at a wall of security monitors showing feeds from across the city. His shirt was fresh, but she could see the bulk of bandages underneath. His face was pale, drawn. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. You should be resting, she said. I'll rest when I'm dead. He didn't look away from the screens. Vincent survived the warehouse. He's in a hospital bed right now, making phone calls, rallying support. By tonight, he'll have convinced half my allies that I'm finished. Are you? Not yet. He finally turned to face her. But close. The article destroyed my credibility. Last night proved I can still fight, but it also proved I'm vulnerable. Vincent's using both against me. He's telling everyone I'm weak, desperate, held together by a fake wife and borrowed time. So prove him wrong. I'm trying. But I'm running out of moves. He gestured to the monitors. Every business I control, every territory I hold, they're all being tested. Shipments delayed, deals canceled, people questioning whether I can protect them. And the answer is... He laughed bitterly. I can barely protect myself. Nora crossed to the desk. Then stop fighting alone. I'm not alone. I have Marco, Valeria, soldiers loyal enough to die for me. That's not what I meant. Dante studied her. What are you suggesting? Use me. Really use me. Not as window dressing at parties. Not as proof you can love someone. Use me the way you use everyone else, as a weapon. You're not trained for this. I'm trained to survive. I've been doing it my whole life. You think I don't know how to fight? You think growing up the way I did didn't teach me anything? She leaned forward. I know how to read people. I know when they're lying. I know how to find weaknesses because I've spent my whole life being one. So let me help. Help how? Isabella. She started this. She gave that reporter everything. She wants to watch you burn, so let's give her what she wants. Dante's eyes narrowed. Explain. She thinks I'm weak. She thinks I married you for money and stayed because I'm too stupid to leave. What if we use that? What if I go to her, tell her I want out, that I need her help? She'll know it's a trap. Not if I make it convincing, not if I show up broken enough that she believes it. Nora straightened. I can do this. I can get close to her, find out who she's working with, what else she has planned. She trusted me once. She'll trust me again. And if she doesn't, then I improvise. Same as I've been doing since the day I walked into this house. Dante was silent for a long moment. Then he pressed a button on his desk. Marco appeared in the doorway seconds later. Get me everything we have on Isabella Corsi's current location and daily routine, Dante said. I want to know where she goes, who she sees, when she's most vulnerable. Marco's expression didn't change. You're going after her? Nora is. Marco looked at Nora like she'd just volunteered to swim in shark-infested waters. That's suicide. It's strategy, Dante corrected. Isabella thinks she's won. She's celebrating. That makes her careless. And careless people make mistakes. What if Nora makes a mistake? Then we adapt. Like we always do. Dante's gaze locked on Nora. But she won't. She's stronger than anyone gives her credit for, including me. The words hit Nora somewhere deep. Validation she didn't know she needed. Marco left to gather intelligence. Valeria appeared next, walking Nora through the plan. Isabella lived in a penthouse downtown. She had minimal security, 2 bodyguards, both hired muscle without the training of Dante's people. She frequented a private club on 3rd Avenue every Thursday night. Tomorrow was Thursday. You approach her at the club, Valeria said. Public place. Cameras. She'll feel safe. You tell her you're done with Dante, that you want her help leaving. She'll either take the bait or she won't. And if she doesn't, then you walk away and we try something else. Valeria's expression was hard. But if she does take the bait, if she brings you into her confidence, you wear this. She handed Nora a necklace. Simple silver chain, small pendant, innocuous. Camera and microphone, Valeria explained. Live feedback to us. We'll hear everything she says, see everyone she meets. You get us proof of who she's working with, we can cut off her support before she does more damage. Nora held the necklace. It was heavier than it looked. What if she searches me? She won't. She's arrogant. She thinks you're desperate. Desperate people don't have the presence of mind to wear wires. But I do. Yes. Because you're not desperate anymore. You're angry. And angry is useful. The next 24 hours were preparation. Nora rehearsed her story until she could cry on command, told herself she was broken, that Dante had used her, that she needed escape. She practiced the slight tremor in her voice that signaled fear, the way her eyes would dart when lying, the body language of someone at the end of her rope. By Thursday evening, she looked the part. No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, jeans and a sweatshirt instead of designer clothes. She looked like the Nora from 3 weeks ago. Exhausted, scared, drowning. The club was exclusive enough to have no sign outside, just a black door with a doorman who looked like he bench-pressed cars for fun. Nora approached slowly, clutching a purse that contained nothing but her phone and the business card Isabella had given her weeks ago. I'm here to see Isabella Corsi, she said. The doorman looked her up and down. You on the list? No, but she'll want to see me. Tell her Nora Varelli is here. He made a call. 30 seconds later, he stepped aside. Inside, the club was all dark wood and leather, dim lighting and expensive liquor. Low music thrummed through speakers hidden in walls. 24 people scattered across the space, beautiful, wealthy, bored. Isabella sat at a corner booth surrounded by 3 men in suits who looked like they'd kill someone for sport. She saw Nora and smiled. Well, This is unexpected. She gestured to the empty seat across from her. Sit. Nora sat. Her heart hammered, but she kept her expression neutral. Gentlemen, give us a moment, Isabella said. The three men left. Isabella leaned back, studying Nora like a specimen under glass. You look terrible, Isabella said. I feel terrible. Trouble in paradise? There's no paradise. There never was. Nora's voice cracked, not hard to fake when her nerves were already shredded. You were right about everything. He's using me. And when he sees done, he'll destroy me, just like you said. I did warn you. I didn't listen. I thought... Nora stopped, swallowed hard. I thought I could survive 6 months. Take the money, walk away. But it's not 6 months anymore. He's extending the contract, changing the terms. He says I'm too valuable to let go. Isabella's smile sharpened. Valuable how? I don't know. He won't tell me. But after the warehouse, after Vincent, he's paranoid. He thinks everyone's turning against him. He's keeping me locked in that house like a prisoner. Did he hurt you? Not physically, but Nora's hand shook. Real this time. I can't do this anymore. I can't be his wife, his weapon, his proof that he's not falling apart. I just want out. So leave. I can't. The contract says if I breach, I lose everything. My grandmother loses her medical care. I go back to having nothing. And Dante, he made it very clear what happens to people who break deals with him. Isabella sipped her drink. You want my help. You offered it once. I'm hoping the offer still stands. Silence. Isabella studied her with eyes that had seen too many lies to fall for one easily. Nora forced herself not to look away, to hold that gaze like someone with nothing left to lose. What exactly do you want from me? Isabella asked finally. Protection? Money. A way out that doesn't destroy me. Nora leaned forward. You have resources, connections. You said you could help. I'm asking you to help. And what do I get? Information. Everything I know about Dante's operations, his weaknesses, his plans. I've been inside that house for 3 weeks. I've seen things, heard things. I can give you everything you need to finish what you started. Isabella's smile was slow, predatory. You want to betray him. I want to survive. If that means betraying him, fine. He betrayed me first. What kind of information are we talking about? Nora pulled out her phone, opened a folder of photographs, screenshots from the security monitors in Dante's study, shipping manifests, financial records, names, and addresses. I took these this morning while he was in physical therapy. He doesn't know I have them. Isabella scrolled through the images. Her expression shifted. Interest, calculation, hunger. This is good, she said. This is very good. Vincent will pay a lot for this kind of intel. Vincent Calabrese? Who else? He's been trying to take Dante down for years. This might finally give him the ammunition he needs. Nora's pulse spiked. Confirmation. Isabella was working with Vincent, feeding him information, coordinating attacks. So, you'll help me? Nora asked. I'll do better than that. I'll introduce you to Vincent tonight. He'll want to meet the woman brave enough to betray Dante Varelli to his face. Tonight? Right now. He's waiting in the back room. Come on. Isabella stood. Nora followed, her mind racing. This was happening too fast. She wasn't ready. But she couldn't back down now. They walked through the club to a door marked private. Isabella knocked twice. It opened. Inside was a room that looked like a smaller, more exclusive version of the main club. Leather couches, a bar. And sitting on one of the couches, flanked by bodyguards, was a man Nora recognized from photographs Marco had shown her, Vincent Calabrese. Mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of smile that had probably looked charming once, but now just looked like a wolf showing teeth. Vincent, Isabella said, this is Nora Varelli, Dante's wife. Vincent's eyes raked over Nora. The famous Mrs. Varelli. I've been wanting to meet you. The feeling isn't mutual, Nora said. She needed to sell this. Couldn't seem too eager. Vincent laughed. I like her already. Sit. Let's talk. Nora sat. Isabella sat beside her. The bodyguard stayed standing, hands resting on weapons concealed under jackets. Isabella tells me you have information, Vincent said. I have photos, Financial records, security protocols, everything you'd need to know how Dante operates. And why would you give that to me? Because I want out of my marriage and you want Dante destroyed. Our goals align. Do they? Or is this a trap? Dante sends his pretty wife to infiltrate my operation, feed me false information, set me up for another ambush like the warehouse? If Dante wanted to set you up, he wouldn't use me. He'd send Marco or one of his soldiers, people who know what they're doing. Nora's voice broke. I'm just trying to survive. Vincent studied her. Show me the photos. Nora handed over her phone. Vincent scrolled through, his expression unreadable. Then he handed the phone to one of his bodyguards. Verify these. Make sure they're real. The bodyguard left. Nora's stomach churned. If they were too thorough, if they looked too close, they'd realize the photos were staged, that the information was real enough to look convincing, but useless for actual planning. 5 minutes passed. 10. Vincent made small talk about the club, about the weather, about nothing. Nora answered mechanically, her mind screaming. The bodyguard returned, whispered something in Vincent's ear. Vincent smiled. They're real. Impressive work, Mrs. Varelli. Dante taught you well. I learned from watching, not from him teaching. Even better. Natural talent. He leaned forward. Here's what I'm prepared to offer. You keep feeding us information, real-time updates on Dante's movements, his deals, his weaknesses. In exchange, I pay you $50,000 a month. When Dante finally falls, and he will fall, I personally guarantee your safety and your grandmother's continued medical care. Nora forced herself to nod. And if Dante finds out? Then you die. Probably badly. Probably slowly. So don't get caught. I won't. Good. Vincent stood, extended a hand. Welcome to the winning side, Mrs. Varelli. Nora shook his hand. His grip was cold, dry. When do you want the first update? Tomorrow, midnight. There's a warehouse on Pier 17. Come alone. Bring me something valuable, and we'll continue this arrangement. I'll be there. Vincent gestured to Isabella. See her out. Make sure she's not followed. Isabella led Nora back through the club. At the door, she grabbed Nora's arm. You're playing a dangerous game, she said quietly. I'm trying to survive. Survival sometimes means choosing the right enemies. Make sure you've chosen correctly. I have. Isabella released her. We'll see. Nora walked out into the night. 2 blocks away, a black car pulled up. Marco was driving. She climbed in. Did you get it? She asked. Every word. Every face. Vincent, Isabella, 3 bodyguards we've now identified. Valeria's already running backgrounds. Marco's expression was grim. You did well. Dante will be pleased. I don't care if he's pleased. I care that this works. It will. You've given us exactly what we need. They drove back to the estate. Nora's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd just betrayed Vincent Calabrese to his face, sold him false information, and agreed to spy for him against the man she was actually loyal to. If this went wrong, if Vincent discovered the truth, she didn't let herself finish the thought. At the house, Dante waited in his study. When Nora walked in, he wheeled toward her immediately. Tell me everything. Nora did. Every word of the conversation, Vincent's offer, the warehouse meeting tomorrow at midnight. When she finished, Dante was silent for a long moment. You did well, he said finally. I felt like I was going to throw up the entire time. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He reached for her hand. Tomorrow night, we end this. Vincent wants a meeting? We'll give him one. But it'll be the last meeting he ever has. What are you planning? Vincent expects you alone. He'll bring bodyguards, maybe more. What he won't expect is for you to be bait. We'll be there, waiting. And when he shows himself, when he commits to this betrayal, we'll have everything we need to destroy him. You're going to kill him. I'm going to give him a choice. Surrender or die. Most people choose surrender when the alternative is a bullet. Nora's throat tightened. And if he doesn't, then he dies. And his organization falls apart. And every enemy who thought I was weak learns exactly how wrong they were. Dante's eyes were winter oceans again, cold, merciless. This is what I do, Nora. I survive by making sure my enemies don't. Can you live with that? I don't know. Then figure it out before tomorrow night. Because once we start this, there's no stopping. No mercy. No second chances. Nora nodded. She wanted to say something, anything, that would make this feel less like walking toward an execution. But the words wouldn't come. She went to her room, didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling and thought about violence and survival and how thin the line between them had become. The next day passed in preparation. Marco assembled a team, 12 men, all armed, all trained. Valeria coordinated surveillance on the warehouse. By sunset, they had blueprints, guard rotations, escape routes. At 11 p.m., Nora got dressed. Black jeans, dark jacket, the necklace with the hidden camera. She looked like someone going to war. Dante appeared in her doorway. He wasn't in his wheelchair. He was standing, braced against the doorframe, legs trembling but holding. "You don't have to do this," he said. "Yes, I do. If something goes wrong, then Marco pulls me out. We've been over this. If something goes really wrong, if Vincent figures out you're wearing a wire, he won't give Marco time to pull you out. He'll kill you on the spot. Then I won't let him figure it out." Dante crossed the room. 3 steps. 4. He was getting stronger, each step less shaky than the last. He stopped in front of her. "I'm not good at this, at caring whether people live or die. I've spent 2 years making decisions that killed people, and I've never lost sleep over it. But if Vincent hurts you, if something happens tonight," his voice cracked, "I don't know what I'll do. You'll survive, same as always." "I don't want to survive without you." The words hit like a physical blow. Nora looked up at him. "Then make sure nothing happens to me." Dante pulled her close, kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, possessive, like he was trying to brand her with his touch so she'd remember who she belonged to. When he pulled back, his eyes were burning. "Come back to me." "I will." At 11:45, Nora arrived at Pier 17. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, dark and silent. No lights, no guards visible. Too quiet. She walked toward the entrance, her pulse hammering in her ears. Somewhere in the shadows, Marco and his team were positioned, watching, waiting. The warehouse door opened. Vincent stepped out, flanked by 6 bodyguards, all armed. "Mrs. Varelli, punctual, I appreciate that. You said midnight. It's not midnight yet." "Close enough." He gestured inside. "Shall we?" Nora followed him into the warehouse. It was cavernous, empty except for shipping containers stacked against walls. Dim lights flickered overhead. Her footsteps echoed. Vincent walked to the center of the space, turned to face her. "You brought the information?" Nora pulled out her phone, handed it over. "Everything you asked for, Dante's shipments for the next month, guard rotations, financial transfers." Vincent scrolled through, nodded. "Impressive. You're a natural spy, Mrs. Varelli." "I'm a natural survivor." "Same thing in our world." He pocketed the phone. "There's just one problem." Nora's blood went cold. "What problem?" "You're wearing a wire." Before she could react, 2 bodyguards grabbed her arms. A third ripped the necklace from her throat, held it up to the light. Camera, microphone, live feed. Vincent's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Did you really think I wouldn't check? Did Dante really think I was that stupid?" Nora's mind raced. "I don't know what you're—" "Don't lie. It's insulting." Vincent stepped closer. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Dante. Tell him to come here, alone, unarmed. If he doesn't, I put a bullet in your head and send your body back to him in pieces." "He won't come." "He will. Because despite everything, he loves you. And love makes even smart men do stupid things." Vincent pulled a gun from his jacket, pressed it to Nora's temple. "Call him. Now." Nora's hand shook as she pulled out her phone. Dialed. Dante answered on the first ring. "Nora?" "He knows," she said. Her voice was steady, calmer than she felt. "He found the wire. He wants you here. Alone. Or he kills me." Silence on the other end. Then, "Put him on." Nora handed the phone to Vincent. "Dante," Vincent said. "Good to hear your voice. Here's the situation. Your wife is currently seconds away from having her brains decorating my warehouse floor. You can stop that by showing up, alone, unarmed. You have 30 minutes. He hung up. "He won't come alone," Nora said. "Then you'll die and we'll find out just how much rage a crippled man can muster." Vincent gestured to his bodyguards. Tie her up. If Dante shows with an army, she's the first casualty. They zip-tied Nora's wrists behind her back, shoved her to her knees in the center of the warehouse. Vincent paced, checking his watch every few seconds. 20 minutes passed. 25. At 28 minutes, the warehouse door opened. Dante wheeled in. Alone. No Marco. No Valeria. No army. Just him. In his wheelchair. Unarmed. Completely vulnerable. Vincent smiled. I didn't think you'd actually come. You have something that belongs to me. I want it back. Your wife? She's not yours. She's been working for me, feeding me information, betraying you. Vincent kicked Nora's shoulder, knocking her sideways. Isn't that right, Mrs. Varelli? Nora looked at Dante. His expression was unreadable. It's not true, she said. Of course it's not, Dante replied. His voice was calm, too calm. Vincent, you've made a lot of mistakes tonight, but your biggest one was thinking I'd come here alone. Vincent's smile faltered. You're bluffing. Am I? From the shadows, Marco appeared, then Valeria, then 12 men, all armed, surrounding the warehouse exits. Vincent's bodyguards raised their weapons. Marco's team raised theirs. Standoff. You're outnumbered, Vincent said. No, Dante said. You're outmaneuvered. My men have been in position for an hour. Yours just walked into a trap. So here's what happens next. You let Nora go. You surrender. You tell me who else is working with you, every name, every deal, and maybe you live through this. And if I refuse, then my men start shooting and you die first. Vincent's jaw tightened. You won't risk hitting your wife. Try me. The silence stretched, taut, deadly. Then Vincent laughed. You know what? Fine, take her. She's useless anyway. Dante Varelli's bought whore isn't worth dying over. He lowered his gun. Dante gestured to Marco. Cut her loose. Marco moved forward, knife out, sliced through the zip ties. Nora stood, rubbing her wrists. Come here, Dante said. Nora walked to him. He pulled her behind his wheelchair. Now, Dante said to Vincent, the names. Who else is working with you? I'll give you names, but not here, not with guns pointed at my head. Let's call this a draw. We both walk away. Live to fight another day. That's not how this works. Then shoot me. See what happens. Dante's finger tightened on his wheelchair's armrest. For a moment, Nora thought he'd give the order. Thought bullets would start flying and bodies would start dropping. But then he smiled, cold, merciless. You're right. Shooting you here would be messy. Too many witnesses, too much cleanup. So instead, I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to let you walk out of here, let you think you've won. And then, when you least expect it, when you finally start to feel safe, I'm going to destroy everything you've ever built, your business, your reputation, your life. You won't see it coming, and when you finally realize what I've done, it'll be too late to stop it. Vincent's face paled. You're bluffing. I never bluff. Ask anyone who's ever bet against me. Dante wheeled backward. Let's go. Marco and his team kept their weapons trained on Vincent as Dante, Nora, and the rest of the crew backed toward the exit. They made it outside, into waiting cars, drove away from the warehouse like they were fleeing the scene of a crime. In the car, Nora finally exhaled. What just happened? We won, Dante said. Not the way I planned, but we won. Vincent's still alive, Isabella's still out there, nothing's resolved. Everything's resolved. Vincent showed his hand. He committed to betraying me in front of witnesses. He aligned himself with Isabella, and now I have exactly what I need to dismantle both of them. How? Dante pulled out his phone. On the screen was a video feed, the warehouse, but from a different angle. A hidden camera Marco's team had planted hours ago. Every word Vincent said, every threat, every admission, all recorded. I send this to the right people, his business partners, his financiers, law enforcement, and Vincent Calabrese becomes radioactive. No one will touch him. No one will work with him. Within a week, his empire collapses. And Isabella? She goes down with him. She's been meeting with Vincent for weeks, coordinating attacks on my business. That's conspiracy, racketeering, enough to put her in prison for years. Nora stared at the video. So it's over. It's over. Just like that? Just like that. Dante looked at her. You were willing to die tonight. For me. For this. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. You could have told Vincent everything, could have actually betrayed me. But you didn't. You stayed loyal even when it would have been smarter to switch sides. I love you. Love doesn't have a smart side. Dante pulled her close, kissed her forehead. I love you too, and I'm never putting you in danger like that again. Yes, you will, because this is your world, and I chose to be part of it. Then we survive it together. They drove back to the estate. Inside, champagne was already being poured. Marco raised a glass. To the boss and his terrifying wife. Everyone drank. Nora stood beside Dante, feeling the adrenaline finally start to fade. They'd won. Vincent was finished. Isabella was finished. The threats were neutralized. But as she looked around the room, at men celebrating violence like it was a sport, at Dante already planning his next move, at the life she'd chosen, she realized something. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. Because in Dante Varelli's world, there was always another enemy, always another threat, always another battle. And she'd just proven she was willing to fight them all. But at what cost? At 2 a.m., after everyone had left, Nora found Dante in the gym. He was on the parallel bars again, pulling himself forward, legs dragging uselessly behind him. She watched in silence. After 10 minutes, he collapsed back into his wheelchair, saw her standing there. How long have you been watching? Long enough, she crossed the room. You're going to break yourself doing this. I'm already broken. Then stop trying to fix something that can't be fixed. I can't. His voice was raw. If I stop fighting, if I accept this, he gestured to the wheelchair. Then I've lost, and I don't lose. You've already won tonight. Vincent's finished. We're safe. For now. But there's always someone else. Another Vincent. Another Isabella. Another threat. And if I can't stand, if I can't walk, if I can't fight the way I used to, eventually someone will take advantage. Eventually, I'll lose. Nora knelt in front of him. Then let me fight with you. Not for you. With you. You already do. No. Tonight I was bait. A tool. Let me be more than that. Like what? Like your partner. Your equal. She gripped his hands. You don't need to do this alone anymore. You have me. And I'm not going anywhere. Dante looked at her. Really looked. Like he was seeing her for the first time. You're insane, he said. I learned from the best. He laughed, pulled her close, kissed her. And for the first time since Nora had walked into this nightmare, she felt like maybe, just maybe, they were going to survive this. Together. But in the morning when she woke, Dante was gone again. And on her nightstand was a single photograph. It showed Isabella. And beside her, a man Nora didn't recognize. But based on the expression on Dante's face when he'd left it there, the man was important. Another enemy, another threat, another battle. And Nora realized, with a cold certainty that felt like swallowing ice, that this life, this war, would never truly end. Not as long as Dante Varelli drew breath. Not as long as she stayed by his side. But she'd made her choice. And she wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The photograph on Nora's nightstand showed a man in his 60s, silver beard, expensive watch, standing beside Isabella outside a restaurant Nora didn't recognize. But it was the expression on the man's face that made her stomach drop. He looked at Isabella the way a predator looked at useful prey, calculating, cold. She found Dante in his study staring at 3 monitors showing the same man from different angles. Security footage, surveillance photos, a dossier open on his desk. Who is he? Nora asked. Dante didn't look away from the screens. Antonio Marchetti. He runs the Eastern Seaboard. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking, anything that makes money and destroys lives. He's been trying to move into my territory for 5 years. I've blocked him at every turn. Until now. Isabella brought him in. Isabella gave him the opening, the article, the scandal, proof that I was vulnerable. Antonio doesn't move unless he's sure he'll win, and Isabella convinced him he would. So what do we do? Dante finally turned to look at her. He looked exhausted, older than 38, like the last 3 weeks had aged him a decade. We finish this, permanently. No more halfway measures, no more letting enemies walk away. We end Antonio. We end Isabella. We end everyone who thinks they can take what's mine. How? By giving them exactly what they want. Over the next 48 hours, Dante orchestrated his final move. He leaked information through carefully selected channels, rumors that he was selling off assets, that his empire was crumbling, that he was preparing to flee the country. He made himself look desperate, weak, ready to collapse. Antonio took the bait. A meeting was arranged. Neutral ground. A private estate in the countryside, 3 hours outside the city. Antonio would bring his people. Dante would bring his. They'd negotiate terms for Dante's surrender, his territories, his businesses, everything he'd built over 15 years. He thinks he's coming to watch me beg, Dante said. He's coming to his own execution. And if it goes wrong, then we die. Both of us. Together. He looked at her. You don't have to come. You could leave right now. Take the money from the contract. Disappear. No one would blame you. I'm not leaving. Nora, we've had this conversation. I'm staying, so stop asking. Dante's smile was tired but genuine. I don't deserve you. No, you don't, but you're stuck with me anyway. The day of the meeting, Nora dressed like she was attending a funeral. Black dress. No jewelry except her wedding ring. Hair pulled back severe enough to make her scalp ache. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a nursing assistant worried about rent. Now she was walking into a war zone beside a man who'd bought her and somehow made her love him anyway. The drive was silent. Dante sat beside her in the back of the armored car. Marco drove. Valeria rode shotgun. Behind them, 3 more cars carried Dante's soldiers. 20 men total, all armed, all prepared to die if necessary. The estate appeared through morning fog like something from a Gothic novel. Stone walls, iron gates, gardens that looked designed to hide bodies. 20 cars were already parked in the circular drive. Antonio brought an army, Marco muttered. So did we, Dante replied. The difference is mine will follow orders. His will scatter the moment things go wrong. They parked. Dante transferred to his wheelchair. Nora walked beside him as they entered the estate's main hall, a cavernous room with vaulted ceilings and windows that let in cold gray light. At the far end sat Antonio Marchetti behind a table that looked carved from a single piece of mahogany. Isabella stood to his right. 30 men in suits lined the walls. Dante wheeled to the center of the room. Nora stayed 1 step behind him. Marco and Valeria flanked them. Dante Varelli. Antonio's voice was gravel and smoke. I've been waiting years for this moment. Then let's not waste time. You want my territory. I'm prepared to discuss terms. Terms? Antonio laughed. You're in no position to negotiate. Your empire is falling apart. Your wife is a fraud. Your enemies are circling. The only term I'm offering is complete surrender. And what do I get in return? Your life. Maybe. If you beg convincingly enough. Dante's expression didn't change. I've never begged for anything in my life. I'm not starting now. Then you're a fool. Maybe. But I'm a fool with insurance. Dante gestured to Marco. Marco pulled out a tablet, projected an image onto the wall behind Antonio. It showed a warehouse. Inside were pallets of white powder, guns, cash stacked in brick-sized bundles. This is your primary distribution center, Dante said, located at 4127 Industrial Boulevard. You move approximately 200 kilograms of cocaine through it every month. The DEA has been trying to find this location for 3 years. I can have this address in their hands within 5 minutes. Antonio's smile vanished. You're bluffing. Am I? The image changed. Now it showed Antonio meeting with a man in a senator's office. Senator Harmon, you've been paying her $200,000 a month to block legislation that would have shut down your operations. I have recordings of those conversations, transcripts, bank transfers, everything. Another image. Antonio at a dinner party with a judge. Judge Morrison, you bribed him to throw out the RICO case against your organization last year. I have proof. Image after image, meeting after meeting, crime after crime. Years of evidence compiled into an airtight case that could send Antonio to prison for the rest of his life. I've spent 2 years preparing for this moment, Dante said, collecting evidence, building a case, waiting for you to make a mistake. And you finally did. You aligned yourself with Isabella. You came after me directly. You gave me the opening I needed. Antonio's hands curled into fists. You son of a... Here's how this works. You walk away. Right now. You dissolve your organization. You retire. You disappear. And I don't send this evidence to every federal prosecutor from here to Washington. You get to keep your freedom. That's more than you deserve. And if I refuse, then you spend the rest of your life in a federal prison. Your empire crumbles. Your family suffers. And I sleep soundly knowing I destroyed the man who tried to destroy me. Silence. Antonio stared at the images on the wall. His jaw worked like he was chewing glass. You think you've won, he said finally. I know I have. You're still in a wheelchair, still weak, still one bad day away from losing everything. Maybe, but I'm still here, still standing, still dangerous. Can you say the same? Antonio stood. His men tensed. Marco's hand moved to his gun. I underestimated you, Antonio said. That was my mistake. But mistakes can be corrected. He pulled a gun from his jacket. The room exploded into motion. Marco drew his weapon. Valeria pulled Nora behind cover. Dante's men flooded in from side doors, guns raised. Antonio's men scrambled for their own weapons. But Antonio didn't point the gun at Dante. He pointed it at Isabella. This was your plan, he said. You told me he was finished. You told me he was weak. You were wrong. Isabella's face went white. Antonio, you cost me everything. My organization, my freedom, my legacy. Because you were too obsessed with revenge to see the trap closing around us. I didn't know. You should have. He pulled the trigger. The gunshot was deafening. Isabella crumpled. Blood spread across the marble floor in a pool that looked black under the gray light. Antonio lowered the gun, looked at Dante. She's yours, my gift. Consider us even. We're not even. We'll never be even. Then kill me. Right here. Right now. Prove you're still the monster everyone thinks you are. Dante stared at him. For a long moment, Nora thought he'd give the order. Thought bullets would fly and bodies would drop and the room would become a slaughterhouse. But then Dante smiled, cold, merciless. No. I'm not giving you the easy way out. You're going to live with what you've done. You're going to watch your empire dissolve. You're going to die alone and forgotten. That's worse than any bullet. He wheeled toward the exit. Let's go. They left Antonio standing in the middle of the room, surrounded by Isabella's blood and the wreckage of his own ambition. In the car, Nora finally exhaled. Is she dead? Yes, Valeria said. She'd stayed behind long enough to check. Single shot to the chest. She died instantly. Nora should have felt something. Relief, sadness, anything. But she was numb. Too much violence, too much death, too much everything. Dante took her hand. Are you okay? I don't know. Ask me tomorrow. Tomorrow we start over. Clean slate. No more enemies. No more threats. You really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, what's the point? They drove back to the estate. Inside, the house felt different, quieter, like a war had ended and no one knew what to do with the peace. That night, Nora found Dante in the gym. He wasn't on the parallel bars. He was sitting in his wheelchair, staring at his legs. I watched Antonio kill Isabella, he said, without looking up. And all I felt was relief. That should bother me, should make me question what I've become. But it doesn't. Nora sat beside him. You're not a monster. I've killed people, Nora. Not directly, not with my own hands. But I've given orders that ended lives. I've destroyed families, ruined businesses. I've done terrible things to maintain power. If that's not a monster, what is? A survivor. Someone who does what's necessary to protect what's his. Is that what you tell yourself? To make loving me easier? I don't need to tell myself anything. I love you because you're honest about what you are. You don't pretend to be better than you are. You don't lie about the violence. You own it. And somehow, that's more human than all the people who commit the same sins and call themselves righteous. Dante looked at her. I don't deserve you. We've established that multiple times. She took his hand. But here's the thing. I don't deserve you either. I sold myself for money. I lied to everyone. I became complicit in everything you've done. So maybe we're perfect for each other. Two broken people who found each other in the dark and decided to stay. Is that what we're doing? Staying? The contract expires in 4.5 months. After that, I'm free to leave. Take my $2 million, walk away, never look back. Are you going to? No? Why not? Because somewhere between signing that contract and right now, this stopped being about money. It stopped being about survival. It became about you, about us, about building something real in a world that tried to destroy us both. She leaned closer. I love you, Dante Varelli, not because you paid me to, not because I'm playing a role, but because you're the first person who ever looked at me and saw someone worth fighting for. Dante pulled her onto his lap, kissed her like he was trying to prove something. When he pulled back, his eyes were burning. Marry me again, he said. We're already married. That was a contract, a performance. I want the real thing. No cameras, no audience, no lies. Just you and me and vows that actually mean something. When? Tomorrow, the next day, whenever you're ready. I don't care about timing. I just care about you. Nora kissed him. Tomorrow. They were married 3 days later in Dante's private garden. No guests, no press. Just a judge who asked no questions and witnessed vows spoken with voices that shook but held steady. Nora wore a simple white dress. Dante stood beside her, not in his wheelchair, but on his own 2 feet, trembling with effort but standing. He'd been working toward this moment for weeks, practicing in secret, pushing his body past every limit. When the judge asked if he took Nora to be his wife, Dante's voice was clear. I do. When Nora spoke her own vows, she meant every word. They kissed, and this time it felt like a beginning instead of an ending. That night, Dante stood by the window in their bedroom now, not separate rooms pretending to be marriage. He'd walked from the bed to the window, 15 feet, the most he'd managed since the accident. Nora watched him. You're getting stronger. Slowly. Too slowly. But yes. He turned to face her. Dr. Chen thinks I might regain partial function, maybe 70% mobility, enough to walk without assistance, not enough to run, not enough to be who I was before. You're already more than who you were before. How do you figure? Before, you were just powerful. Now you're powerful, and you know what it costs. That makes you dangerous in a different way. Dante smiled. You sound like Marco. Marco's smart. I'm learning from him. You're learning from all of us, becoming one of us. He crossed the room, slow steps, careful but steady. Does that scare you? Terrifies me. But I'm doing it anyway. Why? Because the alternative is going back to who I was, and I don't want to be that person anymore. She was small, scared, drowning. I'm not drowning anymore. What are you doing? Swimming, maybe even winning. Dante pulled her close. We're winning together. That's the only version of this that works. 3 months later, the contract officially expired. Nora woke on the final day and found a check on her nightstand. $2 million, exactly as promised. She tore it up. Dante found her in the kitchen, feeding shredded paper into the garbage disposal. That was $2 million, he said. I don't want it. It was part of the deal. The deal's over. This is something else. She turned to face him. I don't want your money. I don't want payment. I just want you. Is that enough? Dante's smile was slow, genuine. It's everything. He handed her a different envelope. Inside was a deed. The house. In her name. What is this? Insurance. If something happens to me, if someone finally takes me down, you own this house. You're protected, provided for. No one can take it from you. I don't need... Yes, you do. Because my world is dangerous, and I won't always be here to shield you from it. So take this. Let me protect you the only way I know how. Nora looked at the deed, then at Dante, then back at the deed. On one condition, she said, name it. You put your name on it too. We own it together, equal partners. No more you protecting me. We protect each other. Dante considered. Then he nodded. Deal. They had the deed amended that afternoon. Nora and Dante Varelli, joint ownership, equal shares. That night, they hosted a dinner. Not for business associates or enemies pretending to be allies. For the people who'd survived the war with them. Marco, Valeria, Dr. Chen, the staff who'd kept the house running through chaos. Ruth was there too. 6 months post-transplant, healthy, alive. She hugged Nora so tight it hurt. "You did good, honey," Ruth whispered. "I'm proud of you. I married a criminal for money to save your life. That's not exactly the moral high ground. You married a man who loves you, who you love back. Everything else is just details." Ruth pulled back. "And he's not as bad as you think. I've been watching. He's trying. That counts for something." Nora looked across the room at Dante. He was talking to Marco, gesturing animatedly about something. He looked relaxed, happy, real. "Yeah," Nora said. "It does." After dinner, after the guests had left, Nora and Dante sat on the terrace overlooking the gardens. The city lights glittered in the distance like stars that had fallen to earth. "Do you regret it?" Dante asked. "Any of it?" Nora thought about the question, about the 3 weeks of terror, the violence, the fear, the moments when she'd been certain she wouldn't survive. "No," she said finally, "I don't regret